The call came while I was zipping my coat, getting ready to leave my friend's place. I answered without checking the number, expecting it to be a routine reminder about my cardiology test. Instead, a steady voice said, "Ma'am, the taxi driver says your grandchildren were dropped off at a house that is not yours. My name is Corinne Halstead, and I am 71 years old. I have lived long enough to know the sound of danger when it speaks." And that sentence sliced straight through me. "I'm sorry, what are you talking about?" I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. My daughter never told me she put my grandchildren in a taxi. I was not even home this morning. "This is Detective Elena Ruiz with the Portland Police Department," the voice continued. "The driver reported that he left the children at the address he was given. Nobody answered the door, and now no one seems to know where they went." My knees weakened. "Detective, I told my daughter hours ago that I could not watch them today. I was nowhere near my house." There was a pause, the kind that feels like the world is deciding whether to fall apart. "Then we need to find out why the driver was told you were waiting on the porch," Detective Ruiz said. "We're pulling his GPS route now." I sank onto the edge of a chair, gripping the armrest. I had raised my daughter, Marisa, alone after her father died. She could be demanding, dramatic, careless, but she loved those children. At least I had always believed she did. Sending Owen and Lila off in a taxi without telling me, that was something else entirely. "Please," I whispered, "tell me they are safe. We are working on it." She said, "Stay by your phone. We may need more information as we track the route." When the call ended, the silence around me felt too sharp, too wide. I had not been home. The taxi had never reached my door, and the police were already searching streets I had never heard of. All I could think was if the taxi never arrived at my house, then where did my grandchildren end up? The police were still tracing the taxi's route when my mind dragged me back to the call from that morning, the moment everything had begun to tilt. Marissa's voice had come through bright and sharp, the way it did when she was already irritated. "Mom, I need you to take the kids today. Owen has a science fair meeting and Lila's school lets out early. It's one of those chaotic days. Please, I'm not home, Marissa." I told her. "I'm across town, and I will not be back until later this afternoon. I also have a medical appointment I cannot miss." A beat of silence, then the guilt. "You always help. Why not now? I told you 3 days ago," I said gently. "This test matters. They are checking my heart rhythm, and I have been waiting weeks for the appointment. So you can't spare a few hours for your grandkids?" Her tone sharpened. "Mom, you know I'm drowning at work." "I cannot today," I said. The firmness in my voice surprised even me. "My health has to come first." She exhaled hard. Not a sigh, more like a warning. "Fine." The line went dead. No argument. No plan B. Just that clipped, cold fine. She had not said a word about arranging a taxi. Not a whisper. The memory ended with the slam of that silence. And then, hours later, the police call. My neighbor, Frank Delaney, shuffled over as I stepped outside to wait for updates. Frank was 68, retired from the post office, and had the kind of eyes that caught everything, even when he pretended not to. "Corinne," he said, lowering his voice. "Saw your daughter earlier. She was standing by her car, scribbling something on a scrap of paper, like she was in a rush. Looked like an address, but she kept glancing around like she was nervous." My stomach tightened. "Did you see what she wrote?" He shook his head. "Only that she wrote it fast. Too fast. People make mistakes when they write like that. A wrong address. A taxi with children inside. A daughter who acted as if my refusal meant nothing at all. Why did she behave as though my boundaries never existed in the first place?" Detective Ruiz called again while I paced my living room. Clutching my phone like it was the only thing keeping me upright, her voice was steady, but there was weight behind it. Mrs. Halstead, we spoke with the taxi company. Your daughter booked the ride at 8:40 this morning. My throat tightened. She never told me. She told the driver. Ruiz continued, reading from her notes. My mom is standing outside. Just drop them. I pressed my hand against my chest. I was nowhere near my house. That's why we are treating this as an unsafe release, she said. The address she provided was handwritten. The dispatcher said it looked smudged, hard to read. A second voice joined the call. Someone from the taxi company. Ma'am, the driver tried calling your daughter. No answer. He circled the block several times. He said the house numbers looked off, but the kids kept saying they were supposed to see their grandmother, so he left them anyway. My voice broke. He panicked. The dispatcher admitted. He found a house with the same number on a nearby street. He thought maybe the handwriting was wrong. Detective Ruiz took over. We classify this as missing minors. Mrs. Halstead. Officers are canvassing both streets. The room tilted. I sank into a chair, covering my mouth. Owen was 10. Lila was 7. They were old enough to feel fear, but too young to know what to do with it. My daughter had sent them off like they were packages, not children. Tell me what I can do, I whispered. My voice shook, but I forced myself to breathe, to stay present. Falling apart would not help them. We need every detail about your daughter's state of mind this morning, Ruiz said. And anything the driver might remember. I wiped my face with trembling hands. I'll tell you everything. As Ruiz explained the next steps, one question kept pulsing beneath her words. One detail the driver had not yet shared. Something he remembered but had not wanted to say. Something my daughter conveniently left out. Detective Ruiz insisted I ride with her to the location where the taxi driver claimed he left them. The moment we turned onto the narrow street, my pulse kicked hard against my ribs. I had never been here in my life. The homes were old duplexes peeling paint, sagging porches, windows covered with cardboard. Children should not have been left anywhere near this block. That one, Ruiz said, pointing. The house with the rusted railing. A man from the adjacent duplex stepped outside as we approached. You looking for those 2 kids? His voice held a nervous edge. Saw them earlier. Sitting right there on the steps. The little girl kept crying. The boy kept telling her grandma would open the door soon. My breath left my body in a rush. I grabbed the railing to stay upright. Detective Ruiz steadied my elbow. Mrs. Halstead. Breathe. We're here. We will handle this. Another neighbor, a woman in an apron dusted with flour, called from her doorway. I heard them, too. They knocked a few times. Poor things thought someone lived there. No one does. The man added quietly. Place has been empty since last winter. A sharp pain shot through my chest, tightening like a clamp. I pressed a hand over my heart, willing it to slow. Not now. Not when my grandchildren needed every ounce of strength I had left. Sit, Ruiz ordered gently. You are not collapsing on me today. An officer jogged over with a tablet. Detective, you need to see this. Camera from the corner shop. The screen showed the taxi pulling up, the children stepping out, and the car rolling away almost immediately gone within seconds. No hesitation. No checking the door. No waiting to see if an adult appeared. He barely stopped. Ruiz muttered. We widened the search 2 full blocks. Now, officers fanned out, calling in units from nearby districts. Radios crackled. Engines revved. People stepped out onto porches, startled by the sudden swarm. As the search spread, one question trembled through me. Raw and electric if that taxi disappeared so quickly. Who reached my grandchildren before the world closed in on them? The search had barely begun when Detective Ruiz's radio crackled. A voice came through, urgent and breathless. 2 minors located. Safe. 2 blocks east, near the laundromat on Brigham Street. My legs nearly gave out. Ruiz guided me back to the car, and we drove the short distance in silence, my breath tight, my pulse unsteady, outside the laundromat. A woman in her 40s waved us over. They were sitting on the curb. She said, "The little girl was crying. I couldn't leave them like that." And then I saw them. Owen's shoulders were rigid, his chin trembling despite his efforts to be strong. Lila's face was blotchy, streaked with dried tears. Grandma, she wailed the moment she spotted me. She ran into my arms, clinging so tightly I felt her shaking. We knocked and knocked, but you didn't open the door. Did we do something wrong? No. Sweetheart, I whispered, wrapping both arms around her. You didn't do anything wrong. Owen stepped closer. He was 10, but his eyes looked older, suddenly older in a way no child should be. Mom said you'd have to take us if we were already there, he said quietly. She said you were just being dramatic about your appointment. His voice cracked at the last word. My throat closed. That single sentence pierced deeper than anything Detective Ruiz had told me. Marissa hadn't panicked. She hadn't misunderstood. She had planned this. I'm so sorry, I whispered to both of them. None of this is your fault. You were put in a terrible situation. A woman in a slate gray blazer approached, flashing a badge. Mrs. Halstead, I'm Dana Collier with Child Protective Services. We need to talk about what happens next. Lila tightened her grip. Owen moved closer until his shoulder pressed against mine. Detective Ruiz stepped in. Dana, the children were abandoned without a confirmed guardian present. We will need immediate statements. Dana nodded. And we will need to speak with their mother. I held my grandchildren as officers documented the scene. Their small bodies trembled with leftover fear, but they stayed pressed against me, as if moving even an inch away meant the world might swallow them again, somewhere across town. My daughter was already talking to someone, to the police. Maybe even to herself, trying to shape a story that protected her. I could only wonder what version she chose, and what she hoped no one would ever uncover. The children were taken to a quiet interview room with Dana Collier while I waited in the precinct hallway. Hands clasped so tightly my knuckles ached. Minutes later, the doors banged open and Marissa stormed inside, hair wild, eyes blazing. "Where were you?" she shouted the moment she saw me. "They were at your house for over an hour." "You should have been there." Detective Ruiz stepped between us before I could speak. "Ms. Halstead, your mother told you this morning she was not home." That was not an excuse, Marissa snapped. "She always helps. She should have been there. If she had been responsible." Ruiz raised a hand. "Stop right there. Your children were left unattended in a dangerous area because you arranged an unauthorized taxi drop-off. This is a child endangerment investigation." Marissa froze, her anger flickering into something like fear. Child endangerment. That is ridiculous. I arranged transportation. They were supposed to go to my mother's house. "And you told the driver," Ruiz said, reading from her tablet. "My mother is waiting outside, but just drop them and go." "I never said that," Marissa whispered. The door to the interview office opened. An officer handed Ruiz a printed transcript. Driver's recorded statement. He confirms she insisted. She also paid extra for a fast stop, no waiting. No verification. My daughter's face drained of color. "He is lying." Dana Collier approached, her voice calm but firm. "Miss Halstead, because of the circumstances. Your children cannot return home with you today. They must be placed with a safe adult while the investigation continues." Safe adult. Marissa scoffed. "You mean my mother? You mean the woman who abandoned them this morning?" The words hit hard, but Dana did not flinch. "Your mother did not abandon anyone. She communicated clearly that she was unavailable. You made a choice that put your children in danger." Dana turned to me. "Mrs. Halstead, are you willing to accept temporary placement? My heart fluttered painfully too fast, too tight. I thought of my medications, my limits, my age. Then I looked through the glass window at Owen and Lila, sitting close together. Still pale from fear. "Yes," I said. "Of course." Marissa's scream tore down the hallway. "You are stealing my children!" I stepped back as she lunged forward, her voice cracking. "You always wanted them. You want everyone to think I am a terrible mother." Officers restrained her gently while she thrashed, shouting accusations that no longer landed anywhere but on herself. Because in that moment, under those fluorescent lights, with evidence stacked against her, Marissa finally realized the one truth she could not manipulate, twist, or outrun. Her lies were no longer a shield. They had become a weapon, and she was the one standing in front of the blade. CPS interviews stretched into the next days, each one peeling back another layer Marissa had hoped no one would ever examine. Dana Collier sat across from me at my kitchen table, her folder already thick. "We have multiple accounts that this was not the first incident," she said. "Your neighbor, Mr. Delaney, reported seeing taxis dropping your grandchildren off more than once." Frank had told the truth. I could still hear his quiet voice from earlier. "Saw them a few times." "Corinne? Thought you knew." I had not known, and that knowledge sat heavy in my chest. Dana continued. "The children admitted their mother sometimes sends them places without checking if someone is actually present." I tried to steady my breathing, but the stress pressed tight. "I am willing to care for them. I will do whatever you require." As if summoned by my own body's betrayal, a faint flutter ran through my chest, an echo of the arrhythmia I was still learning to manage. I folded my hands to hide the tremor. Dana noticed anyway. "Mrs. Halstead, we also need to address your heart condition." Owen, who had been coloring at the counter, looked up sharply. "Grandma is fine." Lila slid closer to me, touching my elbow. "She takes her medicine. She's strong." Dana's expression softened. "I know you love your grandmother, but we have to make sure she can care for you safely." The room went quiet. The children watched me, waiting, needing me to be steady even when I felt anything but. I spoke with my cardiologist. I said finally, he provided documentation. "My condition is stable." I also created a backup plan. My sister, Rosemary, is available for emergencies. And my neighbor Frank agreed to be listed as secondary support. Dana read through the doctor's letter, her face unreadable. She nodded slowly. "This helps. It shows preparation and awareness. But the court will still review both households." Owen's pencil slipped from his hand. Lila leaned into my side. Dana closed her folder. "Until we receive the judge's decision, the children remain here. That part is certain." Her words should have eased me. But a new tension curled inside my stomach. If the system no longer trusted my daughter, and now questioned me as well, everything felt suddenly fragile, suspended. And if neither household could satisfy the court, the next placement would not be in the family at all. The courthouse felt colder than the morning outside. But maybe that was just the weight of everything we were about to hear. I sat at the long wooden table beside Dana Collier, while Owen and Lila waited in a supervised children's room down the hall. My hands trembled in my lap, but my voice, when I needed it, would hold steady for them. Marissa entered with her attorney, chin high, eyes red but defiant. She did not look at me. She looked at the judge like she still believed she could command the world to rearrange itself in her favor. "Your Honor," her attorney began, "my client experienced extraordinary work stress. This was a miscommunication, a mistake, not neglect." Marissa nodded vigorously. "I thought my mother was home. I thought she was ignoring me again. I never meant." Judge Rollins held up a hand. "We will examine the evidence. Ms. Halstead, not assumptions." Detective Ruiz approached the stand first. She spoke with calm precision. describing the handwritten address, the driver's testimony, and the speed of the drop-off. She read aloud the driver's statement. The mother insisted the grandmother was waiting outside. She paid extra to leave quickly. Marissa's jaw tightened. That driver is lying, she muttered, too loudly. Next came Dana. This was not an isolated incident. She said, "We have reports from extended family, complaints about unexpected drop-offs, taxis arriving without warning, and the mother being unreachable afterward." A ripple of murmurs crossed the courtroom. Marissa's shoulders stiffened, her confidence cracking. My client was overwhelmed. Her attorney insisted. She relied on her mother. As families do, Judge Rollins leaned forward. Reliance is not the issue. Safety is. These children were abandoned at an unoccupied house in a dangerous neighborhood. Their grandmother was not notified at any point. The mother fabricated a story for the driver. These are not the actions of someone simply overwhelmed. Marissa's face crumpled from anger into disbelief. "You cannot take my children from me," she whispered. The judge continued, unmoved. The recommendation from Child Protective Services is clear temporary guardianship to the grandmother, supervised visitation for the mother, and mandatory parenting counseling. Child safety must come before parental convenience. Marissa covered her face with both hands. A strangled sound broke from her throat, anger collapsing into humiliation she could no longer outrun. My heart squeezed, not from pity, but from the weight of truth spoken aloud. Justice, at long last, had stepped into the room. The courtroom emptied slowly, but the echo of the judge's ruling stayed sharp in the air. I sat still, hands folded, while Marissa stared at the floor like she could force it to open and swallow the verdict whole. Judge Rollins adjusted her glasses. For the next 5 years, all major decisions regarding Owen and Lila belonged to their grandmother, Corinne Halstead. Marissa's head snapped up. 5 years, the judge continued calmly. You will attend parental rehabilitation, individual counseling, and submit to random home inspections. Your visits with the children will be supervised until further notice. Marissa shook her head, voice cracking. You cannot do this. I am their mother. And yet, the judge replied, you endangered them. This court will not gamble with children's safety. Dana Collier stepped forward with the final document. There is one more note added to your record, Ms. Halstead. Marissa glanced at her attorney, searching for reassurance she would not find. What note? Dana read it aloud. Demonstrated pattern of coercive child abandonment. The words hung heavy, official, permanent, unerasable. Marissa covered her mouth with both hands. That will destroy my career. They will not hire me with that on my record. It reflects documented actions, Dana said gently. Not speculation. Later, in the visitation center, the new rules unfolded in real time. A caseworker slid a clipboard across the table. Ms. Halstead, you must sign before your children come in. Marissa scanned the page. Her eyes darkened as she reached the final line. I acknowledge that today's visit is granted at the sole discretion of Corinne Halstead. She looked at me hurt, furious, small. I said nothing. Dignity required nothing more. She signed. Slowly, Owen and Lila entered moments later. Their faces brightened the moment they saw me. Grandma. They ran straight into my arms. Marissa watched from her chair, fingers twisting in her lap. For the first time, she did not try to pull them toward her or blame anyone. She simply watched quiet, shaken, realizing trust was no longer given freely. Trust would have to be earned, inch by inch, and I would protect them until the day she proved she deserved to hold them again. Thank you for watching, I whispered into Owen's hair as Lila hugged my waist. I'm not going anywhere. If you've ever fought to protect someone you love, tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, make sure to like and subscribe. How do you rebuild a relationship once the person you tried to control becomes the one protecting everything you almost destroyed?